Welcome back to another episode of our Eagle Perspective podcast. I'm Mike Siciliano, Dean of Students of the Upper School, joined once again by our head of schools, Rod Gilbert.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. I mean, do I have a choice, really?
No, you don't.
Okay.
No,
But, I still appreciate that you take the time to say thank you. We do have a little bit of a studio audience once again today. So if you hear some laughter in the background, it's because we pay them to laugh at our silly jokes.
We do. Yeah.
We have a little different one today. We're going to talk about a topic that I know is near and dear to your heart and is becoming much more so to mine as well, and that is the concept of entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And how it fits into our school. And as we talk about strategic plan and moving forward, that's a word.
Yeah,
I think that
it is.
Will hear quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And it's because, let me see if I have this right, you want all of our students to graduate and start their own small businesses.
Yeah, I think if everybody's a food truck or a T-shirt company,
right,
or maybe a coffee shop.
Okay, yeah,
we don't have enough of those.
Yeah, there's a huge lack.
Yeah,
of those.
No, that's not at all what we mean.
Okay, so what do we mean?
I'm glad we're talking about this.
So what do we say when we mean entrepreneurship? What are we talking about?
I would say, if I could do it shortly, our parents, like the families here for years and years, and the ones I've met here, flow with the spirit of entrepreneurship, risk-taking, trying hard things. They're lovely capitalists, which is dear to my heart. And so our whole school just flows with this idea of risk-taking, creating new things. And our school does too, way more than the other two schools I've been a part of. And it's been fun for me to learn the DNA that way.
And we were talking about how that's been in our DNA. I mean, we could go back to the founding of the school.
Yeah, I would agree.
Really, right? And
high risk taking.
Yeah, and then the saving of the school, right?
Oh, several times.
In I think
the meetings in the gym where the families they don't have the money and they saved the school and
right, and the parents that are here cleaning the bathrooms.
Oh gosh, it's a true. We're the spirit of a true startup.
And then we talked as well about the things in the DNA that were here when you got here, like our senior business week.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. And so some of your audience may know about it, but how many years have we done the senior business week? It's got to be more than 15, but I don't recall.
Definitely. So I did it in 2001.
Oh, and you're old.
I am. I'm unfortunately getting old.
Yeah.
I'm at the point now where the kids know I'm old.
Yeah.
Like it used to be, like even 5 years ago, it was like, "Are you still in your 20s?" And now it's like you got to be at least 40 something, right? So I did it in 2001, and I remember it happening when I was in middle school in like the mid 90s. Okay. So it's at least that old.
That's so good. It's just more than half the school life.
Yeah.
So what was your So there was a group. You create a product, and I want you to confess what was your? Because I've seen the last 3 years. Great products. There's a great spirit. So what was yours?
You're gonna make me admit this?
Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah, I want to catalog for history.
All right, I was, and this will come up actually in our conversation on entrepreneurship. I was an overachiever in school. Like
I've heard that.
The grades and all that stuff. And by the time I was a senior, I was like the second semester, I was a little burnt out. And so
that's what happens to overachievers.
Yeah, exactly, right? So me and a couple of my buddies who were in the same boat, like one of whom went to Stanford, one of whom went to Harvard Law. They were smarter than me. Like I was lucky to be around these guys. Mm-hmm. And we sort of said, we don't really want to go all out for this, okay? So we were a little cheeky. And
that doesn't surprise me.
And our business was lemonade. We had a lemonade stand.
Oh, like the little 4-year-olds in my neighborhood.
Right, but here's the thing. Then it got closer, and we were like, oh, man, everyone's going to laugh at us if we really just do this. So we did this, like, homemade raspberry, blackberry lemonade stuff, which was awesome, okay? But the whole thing was foolish because we had to make it by hand. So, like, it totally was counter to our idea of, like, we're not going to go all out. Like, so we find ourselves on every night, like, at my buddy's house, like squeezing the lemonade and mixing this stuff, and it was like we failed this all the way around. Anyway, we did quite well. Now I will say that the businesses have increased in scale quite a bit since then. Like we all had like a little table, right, with a sign.
It feels like a county fair now.
So what do you find now when you come for Senior Business Week?
So what I enjoy is the spirit of the kids and their hard work, and I think a lot of it is sort of inventory control and their creativity, and it's usually some kind of food product and some kind of clothing is the number one choice. So it's like a really fun food court with hoodies.
Yeah.
And the sixth graders love it. A lot of alums show up for it. And for me, it's a communal highlight for the year.
Oh, no question.
And the seniors know it. and they're burnt out and done.
Yeah.
And it's a nice sort of fanfare way to end.
Well, and
the
I
season.
do love seeing all the alumni
I love
come
it.
back
I
for
love
it.
it, yeah.
But just to paint the picture, I mean, now we're at people are like constructing wooden stands.
Oh, it's elaborate.
There's dunk tanks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's online
Basketball
ordering.
goals
There's a lower school system for parents to pre-order
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
Like it's grown.
It has scaled up well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that said, now we kind of have an idea for entrepreneurship, right?
Sure.
Which there is a business component, but there's also this sort of healthy risk-taking, like self-starter
Yeah.
piece to it, right? Like we want students who graduate from here with kind of the gumption to have an idea. It could be business, could be nonprofit, could be mission, could be, but without that fear of like, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like okay, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
So what does that look like to you? Why is that important to you in this world?
So a lot of reasons. I think at the top of it, kids need to be challenged. And if you can convince a child that they can achieve more than they think they can, what happens is you put them through risk-taking events as children and then as middle schoolers and high schoolers. And what you're really building in them is a resilience to acting on things and then suffering some consequences when they fail, and then recovery. And so that's what I would call, it's an entrepreneur-like trait. It's a trait of the entrepreneur that flows among a lot of our families and employees. And I think for us to capitalize on that has huge rewards in the future, so that when we graduate students, they're not like fill in the blank kids.
Right.
And well, is it on the test kids? And I understand the anxiety with testing. I don't want to take away from that, but I would prefer more graduates in the future be willing to take more risks, and then when they just fall flat on their face, then they recover from it and they go, wow, that hurt, and the wound smarted, but I can learn from it pretty rapidly and recover. It's like an NFL quarterback throwing a touchdown.
Yeah.
I heard one of them say he would throw a touchdown and the cameras are on him, and in his head he would say, yeah, but now what?
Yeah.
And that quarterbacks in the NFL are quite phenomenal at recovering. They have to recover fast.
Yeah.
And so there's a good lesson there.
We always tell our defensive backs when we play football, the guys who cover
Yeah,
the receivers,
yeah,
like
big
you
guys.
give up a touchdown, you got to have a short memory because you got to get back out there.
Yeah, that's
right?
good. That's good. Yeah.
So I mentioned at the start how this has become more important to me as well, and I shared a little bit. Like I was the kid who was the grades, the tests. Like a B plus was like an F, right?
B plus to me was an A plus.
Yeah,
I was one of those.
So like a B plus was like, what I do wrong,
Yeah.
And that didn't serve me well.
Yeah.
When I got into the real world, like I found myself at 25 facing this adversity and sort of like, well, no one's going to tell me how to do this thing. Like someone's got to tell me how to do this so that then I can be great at it. That's how life works, right? And since have had this awesome journey of like, you figure stuff out, you try stuff. That's how it works. But I resonate with what you're saying about having graduates who graduate with a little more of that, right? Yeah. And so how do we do that?
Well, I wish I could just tell every student, you get an A, and let's stop talking about grades. What I've found, the very high achievers like you're describing, is they're so concerned about getting it exactly right that they're afraid of getting anything wrong. And that theme was actually picked up by a Stanford academic dean, and she ended up writing a book on it called How to Raise an Adult, which is not in my stack, but when you were talking, we're long-term Santa Fe Eagles are better off if we sort of punch them in the gut, let them learn some hard lessons, and actually struggle with things.
Yeah.
And they stretch those muscles of recovery. I mean, you have it, but it was harder for you to get in your teenage years. But you're in all your loveliness as a man, right? That was a struggle for you, and you're normal. Like most kids struggle with that. It's abnormal to want to be a failing teenager. Like that doesn't make any sense.
It's counterintuitive, right? I mean, no one's going to willingly sign up for adversity.
No, that's why they have mentors in their life. That's why they have mom and dads in their lives. And a phrase I was told years ago was, am I as a father or as a head, am I preparing my child for the path, or am I preparing the path for the child? And the challenge was, If I'm always 5 steps ahead getting all the rocks out of the way so they have an easy path, eventually they're going to fail outside of my care.
Yeah.
And so as a head, I've looked for ways to move the children and teenagers toward more independence so that we can really see what they can do.
Yeah.
That's why I think the word entrepreneurship is so beautiful in this context for kids to learn how to try hard things and learn the scaffolding of whatever a system is around them.
Yeah.
And then work to achieve at it and never, ever, ever play the victim to something, because that doesn't work.
Yeah. I can think of, several of my classmates who had this much more than me, who, and it's not just a business thing, but, one started a ministry in Africa, right?
Wow.
That is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Like, you're going somewhere from scratch
Yeah.
and building something that has an impact on people. You got to figure out the policies, the politics, the personalities,
navigation.
right? All of that, which is really powerful in a ministry context as well. Okay, so you do have some books here in true Rod fashion. Right?
Yeah, I read like they're my friends, and when I saw that this was our topic, I just started rehearsing in my head, what's had the biggest impact on me. So I just threw a couple of books out that some I've read quickly. And there's one of them that's actually so dirty because it literally wrote on the back of our Honda CR-V when the kids were little. And so I'll pull out. I'll just mention that one first.
Okay.
But, so Ange and I, when the kids were little, a guy named Bob Barnes is a psychologist, a Christian psychologist somewhere down in Florida, and he gave at our Providence Baptist Church. He was the speaker. And this one, Ready for Responsibility, How to Equip Your Children for Work and Marriage, really affected us. It was how to develop chores and, how to build into them a sense of fun work ethic, not just for the allowance, and how to correct them when they don't do well at it. And,
You're looking at me because I have a 6-year-old. And
you're going to love this book.
I'm getting the message of that's the one I need to walk out of here
I think if I had one parenting book out of all parenting books,
for
me personally,
okay.
It's just my story, but it really helped Ange and I sort of frame up what does it mean to move the kids to be less and less dependent on us and more dependent on our Lord and their walk and their ability to do things. And one of the lessons from that was Bob Barnes and a guy named Roseman, I can't remember, some Roseman psychologist, challenged us to stop looking at report cards. And it was a result of that book. And we have not looked at a report card since our children were in 4th grade.
Wow.
We just stopped looking.
And your kids are okay?
They're fine adults because of their mother. And but
I think it's at least 10% you.
Maybe.
Okay.
We have not looked at one report card since 4th grade.
Wow.
And we had a relational system in our home of, well, this education is yours. And so we had a rule of if they make below a 83 on any major assignment, they had to just talk about it over dinner and what was their plan and did they need money for a tutor. And we started that at age 9.
Okay.
And it's every time I say this to families and coffees, moms and dads start to perspire.
I'm sweating right now, Rod.
Yeah, it's a psychosomatic response. I've had hundreds of people go, I don't know if that's a good idea. That's the thing that we did, but the principle is you and your home moving them toward independence from mom and dad and dependence on their Lord and their ability to go do things.
So, and this is a good segue into, advice for parents on this, because philosophically, when people have said this before, it's easy in my head to be like, oh yeah, totally, I see how that works.
But to do it?
So I find myself last year looking at the kindergarten MAP scores.
Oh, those are if they get them wrong, they can't be president of the States.
It's well, wait a sec. What is she behind? Is she what it says that the average was this, and she is she what happened? I thought she was I'm catching myself already with my 5-year-old at the time, right? What do we got to do? What does this mean?
Yeah,
and so
you were becoming a day trader as a parent,
right?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's exhausting and it doesn't work.
So how do we as parents what are some things we can do to help us to let this go a little bit?
I gave you my little anecdote of anything below an 83,
okay.
They had to tell us. And if they didn't tell us and we found out later, then there were negative consequences.
So there's a security built in against total failure.
Of course. We went through those, right? But the goal wasn't straight A's or even B's. I didn't care. The goal was for them to fall in love with their journey of learning and not let a system of grades get in the way. And I didn't come up with that. I mean, I was challenged to do that. Yeah. And Angie and I did it with a lot of fear and trepidation. But I'm tying it back to this concept of entrepreneurship-like behaviors, like kids that learn how to be slowly more and more independent from mom and dad fixing things, and more dependent on the Lord Jesus Christ and their own, the philosophers call it moral agency, to go attack a problem and figure it out. It's the ultimate spirit of being a human, of the engagement with the world taps into the imago Dei, like that's one of the words that's come up a lot in our that will come up in our strategic plan, and it will forevermore. It's an important thing.
So I'll just, and again, I'm not as scholarly on the Bible as you are, having been through seminary. Yeah. But I think about the story of the apostles. Oh. Right. And so Jesus dies on the cross, rises again, goes off to heaven, and then the 12 or the 11 plus one more. Really, it was of course more than that, but they go off to all the ends of the earth on their own, right? They each kind of build their own ministries from scratch in different places. They do. I mean, that's a version of the entrepreneurship that we're talking about. It is
high risk taking, and politics were against them.
Sure,
we actually have soft politics in America right now. We feel oppressed sometimes, but compared to third world countries, our system's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And those guys were really in an uphill battle for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, when we talk about entrepreneurship, another book that I put on here, like I give a copy of this is a leather-bound little pocket version of the U.S. Constitution, and I give copies away all the time, and I just keep some in my office. And the reason that's so important is there's something beautiful about this American free market capitalism. We're in a regulated society. My undergrad's in economics and my master's in divinity, and I just love the idea of harnessing an economic system for good. And so I had a friend of mine, he's actually a dad here, who said he moved from his country to America because of the U.S. Constitution. He said that in his country, he could create a company, but because there was not enough rule of law, it could be stolen, or he had to use payoffs. It was a criminal system that was actually in charge in his country.
Payoffs is a nice way for saying bribes.
Bribes, and that was the system. And he said, here in America, you can create a company. I think it's like 3 to 6 months to go from concept to LLC. I've actually never done one. I've a lot of friends and parents here, but he came to this country and he's now a citizen. I got to give him a copy.
Awesome.
And but he said here he can create a company, and then 3 to 6 months the LLC's live, and then as it grows, some fail. He said some fail, but when it grows, now he has this entity that's resulted from capitalism, of investment, and then now he's created a thing of value that he could sell or let it perpetuate. And he said the American system provides that for him. And so when I think about our kids here, the graduates here, the opportunities available to them in these 50 states are some of the best ever. They really can go create things of value, and then they're protected by this. There is a protection there. It's not perfect. I mean, that'd be weird.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's beautiful. So.
And I mean, there's an argument that the Constitution itself was an example of entrepreneurship.
Gosh, yeah.
I mean, it was a brand new system.
It was a startup.
It was let's try it. It had some failures that we've had amendments, and it's survived for 200 and a lot of years at this point in time.
And we're all thankful for it. Yeah. And warts and all, it's a beautiful system. And I want to highlight another book for you. So a few years ago.
By the way, if I read all of the books that you highlight, like my reading list is like 2 years long at this point.
Well, some I read slowly. Like this one was the one that was probably the back of the CRV for years. That's why it's nasty. This one I sped read, and but the this one is written. This is called The Human Advantage: The Future of American Work in an age of smart machines. So I've talked to half a dozen parents that are creating companies or CEO of companies, or they work at companies in this biotech corridor here, who are harnessing the latest and best at robotics and AI in the medical field. And I think that sometimes when we watch too many movies like Terminator or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or like iRobot.
I was just going to say, what's the Will Smith one?
I
love that movie.
I love that movie when the robot tells his mom,
so good.
Stay inside for your safety.
Right.
I got goosebumps.
Yeah,
But
that's a great film.
This guy is actually a Christian, and he was a fellow at the Discovery Institute. Discovery Institute specializes in intelligent design theory as a Christian theory on the origin of man. And he has a PhD from Princeton, and he's saying that because of the Imago Dei, because of God's implanting that we actually have his image in us, that we should look at the next adventure of the next 20 years of civilization as one of the best ever. Because Christians, and well, even not Christians, but we understand the teleology of the end. Like it's all Christ's earth. And so his argument is now is a grand time to be in fields with AI and robotics and to harness those things for good. And I would say, my grandfather was a farmer, and he harnessed the technology of the day to farm. Right? Yeah. He did more than his great-grandfather. And so I think if we teach the kids to look with this grand adventure of the future, that they can try new things and not be afraid and not let the really cool science fiction scare them. Like
I've got like 12 other robot movies, like RoboCop, right? Like that's another podcast.
Gosh.
We just
RoboCop.
say the best.
Even WALL-E is one of my.
WALL-E.
Oh my gosh, the fat people on that ship are hilarious. But, I would want the kids our students and our families to understand the value of this next adventure. So the reason I brought this book is that this other one was given to me by an entrepreneur at my last school. And I don't know what the stat is. I've read it in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure some parent knows it. But there's some high percentage of jobs that exist now that didn't exist 20 years ago. And so the job market that our little ones will be when they're, when our 5-year-olds are 25 and 30, most of them will have jobs that that civilization hasn't even invented yet. And so what we want to do with a Christian education is to teach skills that create value and entrepreneur-like skills to recover and find things and create things out of nothing. And either they're going to create a company or a product, or they're going to work on a team that's trying to solve a problem. Yeah. And so if we just accept the fact, the beautiful fact that the job market in the next 20 years will be different and interesting, then I think the kids face it with some real excitement. Yeah. And but that goes back to why I want the themes in our curriculum. That it's already, I would say it's above average, but we're only 40-something years old as a school. Right. And that means that the next 5 to 10 years, I think all of us can respond to, let's make it better. I've not even conceived of how to advance the business week. I have some ideas, but the curriculum around it, and then how that vertically aligns. There's certain entrepreneurship themes that I would actually want to see, like that I know that they're vertically aligned down to the lower grades.
All right, so just so people, I want to make sure they see the book. It's called The Coming Jobs War by Jim Clifton, and it's funny, just as listening to you talk, it's almost like there's this old antiquated notion of like, you go to school and you learn a trade and you do that trade for 50 years because that's your skill. That's what makes you marketable. That's a guild skill, a guild system. Kind of what we've been in this shift to, and what our kids will be even more so. Yeah. What you're saying is more important than the trade or the skill that you learn is this ability to reinvent yourself, to go out and, okay, the world's changing. Where can I make a difference? Like that's going to be important to our kids in employment as much as the specific skill that they're learning.
Yeah, transferable skills.
Yeah.
And to not be afraid of it.
Yeah.
To not be afraid. Yeah. And to see every day as the new opportunity as a Christian to go explore. So these things, it gets me excited about the future of the school and the applicability of the Christian worldview, as it, like, all these things are theologically tied to Scripture. Yeah. And that we Christ is a creator. That's in Colossians 1:15. He's the preeminent creator of all things. And therefore, since we have his image, we get to go create. And so for little ones, like I saw the kids painting yesterday, the art class and business week, and there's all kinds of little creative things happening. Sometimes people equate creative with the arts.
Yeah.
But I would equate creativity with everything from how the linemen position their hips to push the other big guy down.
Yeah.
Like there's creativity there. Of course, the art, the drama program and the musicals, but even just in the way that the creative way to solve a advanced math problem, and for the kids to see it as their interest and desire to go solve it creatively and not be afraid of failure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I keep saying that theme over and over and over.
It's important
because I think it's one of the hottest ones, and I think that we as parents struggle with our kids getting too bruised up.
Yeah.
I had a difficult time with it.
Yeah.
But we learned through it.
I'm already learning, so do I.
Yeah, well, your kids are perfect, and so you won't have this problem.
Yeah, the cameras are on, right? Yeah, thankfully my wife's perfect.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I met her.
Kids have a ways to go. I love them, but they have a ways to go. Okay, so last question.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about Senior Business Week.
Yeah.
If you were going to have one, like if you were going to have a senior business yourself.
If I myself.
Yes.
Oh, if
what
I
are you
got to
thinking?
actually
Like, let's say we said, hey, Mr. Gilbert is also going to have a business this year at Senior Business Week.
Oh.
What's your best idea?
Gosh.
That would just,
That's blowing my mind.
Well, that's my job here is to ask questions.
I've not thought of that. I would probably try to tackle something that I've never tackled before.
Okay.
Instead of doing something that's in a comfort zone.
Okay, I love that answer.
Because if I'm true to what I'm saying, so I'm not tool oriented. My son is. My son has a tool orientation.
Yeah.
I would go and I would want to partner with some students that are tool oriented, like 3D printing or something like that, and harness some kind of unique 3D printing thing for me personally. And then me get to learn from that group, and what can I add to that little group that's unique? What can I add to the group to make the group better? But I would want to try something that I've never tried before.
Okay.
And so for me to actually be in a group with tools would be contradictory to everything that I am.
You're not the guy that, like, when the toilet breaks, you fix it.
No, I'm a man. That's
okay. Because
I am a man.
I'm not good with tools, Rod. I'm just gonna say that.
Well, I built goat houses I built porches. I've repaired our septic tank. This is what people do. Matt
Hannon makes fun of me for how quickly I will call a repair person.
He should, but you'll learn. You're learning.
I'm trying.
Don't give yourself a break. Just go to Home Depot every Saturday and find the
Just
oldest guy and walk around
until
with
I get comfortable.
Yeah, I did that in my 20s at work. And but I think finding a group that is pushing in a direction that I'm not comfortable with will actually be more fun for me than me trying to drive it.
Yeah.
And then I'd like to see what they come up with.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rod.
Sure,
this was fun.
I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you again for listening to our Eagle Perspective podcast. And if you'd like to watch our podcast, you can find us on YouTube. You can also keep listening to our podcasts on Apple Music, Spotify, and other places where podcasts are available. We will catch you next time.